First flights are a pain.
use a lock washer on those screws?
Absolutely not. Now, unfortunately, they're all starting to roll in here. We may get one more flight if we're lucky. So this is what I come home to. Demolition services. There's an element of pain in demolition work. John DeTavio and I did demolition work for about 3 years. It was painful. Now while the demolition is going on like crazy, I thought I'd get started on doing some of the body work on this. And the reason is because I can sand up here, but when I put this material on, this really is best if it lets it dry a couple hours. And because I have several other projects to work on today, the motorcycle, the backyard, and this, what I thought I'd do is see how this automotive finish is going to sand. And so far it's powdering right off with 320. So I'll start on the parts because I don't want to paint over paint over paint. What I want to have is get this down to as much of this, especially the automotive stuff, get as much of it off, get it smooth, and then re-silver it. And when I get to that point, then obviously I'll block off the wing. But right now the fillets are going to need a lot of work. This up here is going to need a lot of work. This is going to need a lot of work. And it's always best when putting this material on is put it on, let it dry as long as possible, and put it on in little tiny thin layers. And what I do is I use up all my old razor blades, and you can see what happens to them. And I do it one little thin layer at a time. You can buy this stuff any place there's a, well, any place there's a place that sells body shop supplies. But when I opened up today's mail, what came in was very interesting. Richard Oliver, over the past several years, I asked him to, when he did some unusual stuff or some technical stuff at his shop or some of the stuff down at Dub's, to just run a video camera and give me a little, like a sneak peek, as if I was down there at Dub's shop or at his shop. And he's got some real interesting stuff. We're going to put the first of many on this tip. Little tips that Richard Oliver might be able to pass on very conveniently. Check this out. This is from Richard Oliver. And one of the things that's going to be an ongoing part of our subscriber videos, we're going to try to include some little tips, some of the little things Richard does each time we make one of these extended videos.
See, this line is still straight. If we can point that out. If you curl around and you put this up in there where the handle's going to be, you can see it's straight. And if you get the Tom Morse pistol handle, it's like this, which means you have to do this. And now you have no down. So when it comes time to do your downs, what you'll find is you're doing this. So that straight up and down front part, see how much down I have? And if I pull this back, I've gotten rid of all that down. I don't have it anymore without doing this. So my calculations, my thesis, my pie in the sky equations came up with, I want to keep this part straight, but I want to fill in the back to where, and smaller hand will need smaller space, bigger hand may need more. But it gave me a more positive feel no matter where I was in the pattern. So the ones that I've since made, since I don't like this handle, I do like the hardware. So I take the handle off, throw it in a box, give it to somebody. It might suit them. And then I buy just the hardware. Now the hardware from Dick Byron, $22 shipped. So that's inexpensive. That's cheap. Now this is a 5-inch one. You can buy 4-inch ones. Depending on how you fly. If you fly very nose heavy, you need the 5-inch. If you fly a little on the tail heavy side, and or you have really, really limber, lots of movement. See, there's not a lot of movement there. I have seen some people that seem to have this in their wrist. You can go with a smaller handle. I don't have that much movement. Plus, my style of flying is I like to flick. I don't like to horse back to get the corner, to get what I want. So that's my style. But assess your style. Assess how you like to fly and what you need. But by all means, this is too cheap not to try different things. My current handle that I'm flying looks like this. So I like the soft feel of the wrap. Some people don't like anything. And this is what I just flew at the Nats. And it's not quite as big back here, but it still is big enough to give me a firm grip. But it's still straight here to where if you pull, if you take and you pull on your hand, which is what the airplane's doing, your hand will go to a natural spot. If this is cocked back and you pull, you see what happens? Your hand wants to go to that natural spot. So you have to artificially, with a forward-leaning pistol grip, you have to fly different. See how my hand is. And what I've found is if you fly with a pistol grip, you need to fly with your hand lower. See how it brings it up? Now the pistol grip straightens up if you fly with your hand low. See, there's low. See when I extend my hand out how much further it goes down? And now it's really down. And it's just slightly down. So again, depending on your flying style, if you fly this way, see, they're straight for me. I can send my hand in and out and pretty much keep it straight. But you can see that it now turns up a little bit. See, there's where I fly basically. And if I bring it in, it's now up. If I extend it out, it's now straight. This is where I fly. That's where I want it straight, so that when I finish a maneuver, this is naturally neutral. This is naturally where the elevator should be. Seems like an awful lot of information for something as simple as a handle. Something that you should just be able to pick up and go fly. But if you're wanting to get better, part of it starts at this end. The handle really starts here, but this is a place that you can do something about easily. You can make your own handles. Now I go down to Home Depot and I buy a little piece of 3/4 by 3 maple. That's all this is. I think this costs $4. You can make 2 or 3 handles out of it. I may have already made one and cut some off. Yeah, I can see an uneven cut. So this piece was probably already a handle on there. So you can get 3 or 4 handles out of this. And as you can see, I've already drawn one on there. And this is how it will mount. So I've since decided that I want this little finger locator here, because all I want to do, I don't need one for every finger spacing. All I need is the one here. That locates everything the way I want. And then I don't have to worry about, does each little groove fit my finger? So I now have a locator here. Now you can also use the top and the bottom for your hand make it exactly fit your hand. And as you can see, this one does pretty much fit my hand. But I can still move it a little bit. I can compress it up a little bit, I can compress it down a little bit. But this gives me the feel of that's where my 2 fingers ought to be. So again, this is some of the first steps to begin to be consistent. This will help. I have even experimented with, I always felt like I needed more down than I did up, because up was easy, up is easy. Down, for me physically, just doesn't come easy. So what I was doing was I'd move the bar in or out at the top or bottom to accentuate that. The more I practiced and the more I worked with props that didn't resist the turn, the more I worked with CG positions that didn't resist the turn, the more I decided that everything square on the handle suited me better. But my setup and the way I fly requires a lot of practice. If I lay off for a week or two, it takes me a day or so to get back to where I'm right in tune with the airplane, because I fly a little bit tail heavy, a little bit quick on the handle, and you won't always come out exactly where you want if you haven't practiced a lot. Now for you guys who don't practice a lot, then I would suggest a little bit nose heavy. I would suggest a wider handle spacing with the bar further out, and you'll have to work harder in the turns, which I'm very uncomfortable with, but you'll have to give it a little more effort to get that turn, and you won't get this kind of turn. You'll get this kind of turn. But it may suit where you need to be. This kind of turn, you can see on the camera here, instead of rotate and turn, when you get this lift where the nose just seems to, the airplane just, instead of rotating, you get this nose lifting, airplane moving forward and then slide into it. That forces you to open up your maneuvers. And what I've noticed in the FAI is that doesn't hurt you too much. On a local level, that doesn't murder you. But at the Nats and some at the local level, once you start opening up, there are a lot of judges out there that have been brainwashed into thinking that if you go to 46 degrees instead of 45, you're a bad flyer. So the more nose heavy you get, and the harder you have to fight it, the bigger that radius becomes. For a square to look square, if you're coming out of this corner halfway to the next one, then you really need to stretch it out to make it look square. So you've got to set your airplane up, your handle up, choose your prop, all with this in mind. Again, on a local level it won't hurt you quite as bad, but more and more contests that I go to, the judges just won't accept a slightly larger maneuver, and a little bit larger maneuver they really hammer. You go from a perfect looking square being a 28 because you're flying 50 degrees. And you go to the World Championships, that 50 degrees won't hurt you at all. In fact, you might get a better score. So this is a US thing. Even though the rules say 45. But what the rules don't say is if you fly at 50, you're to be downgraded so severely that your scores say you're not only bad, you're really bad. And that's the trend that I'm seeing. That I think is inappropriate and it's misplaced. But depends on where you want to go with this. So next thing we're going to do in making this handle, now Dick sells these like this, and about the only thing that I change is I put a wing nut on here, because I don't like going and getting a wrench just to change neutral. So I just want to be able to turn this, set neutral, and then lock it back down. He puts a lock nut, nylon inserted lock nut. That's a 832 screw. So I just go down to Home Depot. They're like 40 cents for a box of 8. And if you buy this one, I thought he gave the screws for this. This is 1024 or 1032. If you go to Home Depot, it's kind of hard to find 1032. 1032 is what True Turn uses in their spinners. And when those start getting long, they start getting very expensive, and you need a 3-inch. Well, 3 inches is about $6. So 1024 3-inch is 20 cents. If you go to stainless, it's like 40 cents. So I get the stainless. You need a couple of those with some nuts and a wing nut, and you're ready to go. So you'll spend another $1, $2 on nuts and screws and what have you. So you'll need a good bandsaw, because this is maple and it is hard. And then you'll have to drill this very carefully. Actually, it doesn't need to be super careful, but you can get things misaligned and off, and then it's hard to move the bar and get it all bolted up, and you certainly don't want it moving in oversized holes. So we're going to cut this out. So this matches the hole here. So you want to get those centered quite well. And what I also want is for this center to be in the center of the handle as well, or to be centered on that. So this is 5.5 inches hole spacing. So half of 5.5. So my math is always kind of 2 steps. Half of 5 is 2.5, and half of half is another quarter, so that's 2 3/4. So the peak of my finger, two middle finger locators, is at 2 3/4. That makes everything in the center. And again, that makes handle to handle repeat when I make them, and I've made a number of them, and I tend to want to keep a handle for my classic and a handle for my expert airplanes, and I don't like readjusting them. So for $22 and a couple of dollars worth of hardware and $1 worth of wood, I can make another handle. So I would rather do that than move one handle around. Now for you guys who don't fly but 1 or 2 airplanes, 1 or 2 handles is all you'll need. So for less than the price of one Casminato handle, you can make 2 or 3. So we're going to drill this and come back. Now one note, I also bought this one, and this, I'm not sure who makes it, but I do know that within a short span of time, this one broke my lead out wire. And as you can see, it has a screw, a round-headed screw that has been drilled. and your wire goes through there up to the other one, and it's all locked down, and when you're flying, the wire does this, this, and this, and this. I mean, while you're pulling, airplane is pulling, and this is too hard to turn here, and it's metal. If this is the handle you're looking at, I strongly suggest it's not worth the airplane you're going to lose. Or you find some way to where this won't break your cable. Or eventually get it to the point to where it's going to break. Dick uses Delrin. And exit point here is also Delrin. So he makes a little fitting that has a blind nut in the back with a 632 screw or 440. I think it's 632, but it might be 440. But the Delrin block won't break this handle because, believe it or not, when you're flying, this is going on, and watch this part back here. So now I get rid of the wire. You can use his wire. I like a more flexible wire. See how this one is not that flexible. And when you change the spacing here, you kind of have a set here that it's taken, and when you move it up or down, then it changes this radius that's been there for a while, or if you've been flying, and it resists it. So I want a little more limber wire. Number of places you can get that, but I get it from Wendy Yurtnowski. He bought a spool of it that goes with his handles. What do I do with his handle? Well, doesn't matter, it's in my handle. See this wire here, and it's plastic coated. See how limber it is. Now this one is a little bit stiffer. You can see the size difference. And again, this is just me. So I think what you get when this gets a little bit stiff is you occasionally, when you pull up, you get some movement. See how that is? And that may not be all bad. That may be translated into what I'll refer to as exponential, that when you start, you get a little mushiness and then it goes. Might be smoother for you. Might make it softer around neutral to where if you're moving while you're turning around, nothing's happening because it's doing this. Try it. If you suspect it, then change the wire. It won't cost 20 cents. Call Wendy up, order some of the wire and his fittings that you just crimp with a pair of pliers, and they're nice soft copper and they hold it really well. They really bite into the plastic coating, if nothing else. So give that a try. Now before I cut that, show you a couple other handles. This is a Bill Lee handle. Great for racing. Bill's a control line racer. He makes props and this handle. There are a lot of things I like about this handle, but for stunt, it's not a good handle. It does two things at one time, whether you like it or not. So if you want to narrow your line spacing, see this little cam? What happens is if you narrow it, you also move the pivot point out. Not a big thing, but what I'm finding is I want it that far out to begin with, but I may not want that narrow line spacing. So again, for racing, excellent handle, well made, $40 from Bill Lee. Here's a handle that I really kind of like. Found it on eBay when I first started flying 4 years ago. I bought this off eBay. Now it really fit my hand well, and I dipped it in the yellow plastic you can buy from Home Depot. That it has a wood handle underneath. This is aluminum that loops all the way through, and then they mill it out, or it was already milled out, and then put their fittings in here. But again, it's metal fittings, which I'm not crazy about, so they're working on your lines the whole time you're flying, and you have to keep a good eye on them. But overall, this handle feels good in my hand. But again, you can't just adjust this distance, which I found later on I needed. So there was a couple of handles I had in the box. And we've got Fat Cat here. He's inspecting what we're doing. Okay, what I've done is I've marked where I want to drill, and I'm punching an awl just to mark the spot so the drill bit won't walk off that. So now, since this is not cut, I can lay this in the vise in the drill press and drill straight through, and everything stays lined up, and I don't have to worry about getting it lined up after I've cut this. So it's just a step that should be done beforehand to make it easier. So stainless 1032, no, actually 1024. We're going to measure what drill size we want, and looks like about 184 thousandths, I'm sorry. So to give me a little bit of clearance, I'm going to drill it somewhere around 190. And I have a numbered drill set, and I'll just pick one that gives me a few thousandths clearance. Alright, we found a drill, number 9 drill it looks like, and it's 193 thousandths. So that gives me 10 thousandths clearance, which is, in many instances, would be considered loose, but for wood and this application, 5 thousandths to the side isn't bad. We've chosen our drill bit. We're going to set up our drill press, drill these holes. We can lower our bed. Get it underneath it, and clamp it in. drill the other hole. Okay, we have our 2 holes drilled. Now what I'm doing is I'm checking to make sure that everything lines up and I won't have trouble adjusting it by it being pulled off a little bit. So you want just a little bit of clearance to where things can move around, but not so much that they're sloppy. So now we've got this basically set up. We're ready to cut out this part. Now, we made our first 2 cuts. We cut this off. And I cut these out. I know they fit somewhere. Yeah. So since it is hardwood, it's kind of difficult to get even the bandsaw. I have a small blade to kind of follow concave, or those contour curves. So I cut it out the best I can, and then I'll take the Dremel sander and smooth it all up. Now when I'm designing this, and since I use the tennis racket wrap or handball or racquetball wrap, I go down to any of the sporting goods store and get a roll of it. It's a couple of bucks. I cut a little extra out here because I'm going to build it up. So I will round this off a little bit extra because I want that soft, spongy feel that I get and the good grip. My hands sweat, so I want to keep that good grip in the summer when it's hot. So we're pretty much on our way. See, our 2 holes have come out in the back, and you can see how much more difficult it would be to drill them with this way. Or if it's still a flat surface, I have to make sure it's straight in the drill press. So if you're going to be drilling it by hand with a hand drill, then best thing to do is eyeball it as best you can, get this as square as you can in some kind of a vise, and then hold your drill as straight as you can to drill down. And you'll want to drill it a little more oversized, so that it lets you have some room, because if you drill this way, then it's not going to fit your hardware. But if you oversize the hole to where you can move it around a little bit, it's not bad. That won't kill you.
In on I-10 eastbound at Monmouth, a couple of your right lanes are blocked off, and of course the raindrops.
Okay, I've done some minor fitting
and the Katy Freeway inbound as
and sanding.
An accident there takes up your left lane. It's about
what I'm looking for is for it to feel a little bit comfortable in my hand, and with no wrap at all, I can fly this. But I need the wrapping to finish it, because I also put a little extra back here to help fill in this gap. As you can see, I don't want that to happen when I'm flying. Because, as I said earlier, that affects going back to neutral. But I'll do that with wrap. If you're making yours, then you need to take that into consideration. Now, I also need to counterbore this hole. So I've measured the size of this head, the screw. It's 350, so I'm going to take a 3/8 drill, and I'm going to drill in a little bit to where that'll go in and set inside. Instead of sticking out in the open, it'll recess down there and be out of the way. One of the things you can experiment with, especially if you fly your airplanes a little bit on the tail heavy side as compared to someone who flies them very nose heavy, this will help the hunting. It'll help calm down level flight. A lot of times when I get the CG where I want it, the airplane becomes very hard to keep level. It'll wander 3 and 4 feet, especially in the wind. So the bar handle really helps that. But for you guys who want to fly really nose heavy, you may not want the bar handle. You may want this like the Ted Fancher handle, which is hard point and almost no overhang. It starts from here instead of from out here. So it's one of those tools. If you're trying to get better, this can make it easier. As I said earlier, I usually wrap mine. This is just finish wrap. Also helps absorb sweat. And this is not enough. I'm going to need another full roll. But CA sticks to it really well too, so that's another bonus with this. We'll get it started here. I want to keep it smooth. I don't want to feel little wrinkles and bulges when I'm holding the handle. I tend to like my handle thicker than most people, wider. I want a good sized grip. So I also will sometimes build up the handle. I'll lay strips on either side to thicken it up. But if that's not something you want, then it just makes this that much easier. And like I say, I pull all the wrinkles out. I don't want to feel them when I'm holding the handle. If I lace it around the center point there, I'll try to cover that. Yeah, that'll feel pretty good. So I'll wrap it again with the same amount. Fit my hand. And you can just build yours to fit your hand. Okay, what we're going to discuss is building a straight fuselage. And for lack of a better term, we'll just call this the Rojet way. Since Rojet is a familiar name that we can operate from, or Richard Oliver, but this is my way, without a fuselage jig, of building a straight fuselage. I've seen way too many banana fuselages that were untrimmable, and people fought them and fought them. We will make our jig part of our fuselage. This is the drawing here of where the formers are, Fuselage doubled up sides. The crutch will lay in right here. But everything has a center line on it. All the formers will have center lines. I've cut them up to the exact width. Got them all numbered, 1 through 11, which they're 11 back here. But by drawing this out on paper first, I've determined their exact width. And I also didn't want this to be a sharp, straight back. Because with ball links, you need a little more room. This is our hinge line here. With ball links, you need a little more room in here. So if I come with a straight line from the back of the wing or the flap hinge line back to here, then I have to bulge this out. So what I did is I took my ship's curve like this, which this thing you can bend to any shape you want. As you can see, you can create S curves and all that. So I created a curve that would be a gentle transition from here, maintaining the width I want, which at the hinge line I want a minimum of 3/4 of an inch. And I pushed this out to 7/8 just as a safety margin. So this line is the inside of the fuselage halves. And I'll join it back here with an 1/8 inch spacer, which will also help this, because pinching it down with this much pull off of this former stresses the wood. And so I will widen this out a little bit. But by determining this center line, and this is going to be, this is a piece of 3" by 3/32. It could be 1/16. This is not that structural, except for back here it finishes and boxes in the fuselage. So when we do put the sides on, here we will finish a box all the way around the fuselage on all 4 sides. So that creates our stiffness without adding a lot of weight, and it's very important to have the fuselage stiff, where in windy conditions or high G pulls, the tail doesn't twist and go the opposite direction from the wing and do funny things. So we want to build in stiffness without building in extra weight while doing it. I also have mapped out that my pipe tunnel's coming to here, where the hinge lines are, where the wood is doubled up and single, just back here, where the crutch lays in. I even marked off the spinner and the shape. I wanted to see how this flowed into the spinner and how much I needed to take away off the crutch. One of the things I hate is if the crutch is square here, then you get to this point here and you have to pinch in real hard to get down to a 2-inch spinner. Then when you're shaping the outside, you end up sanding into this hard edge. So you'll have a soft and a soft and then this hard edge, and you never can get that hard edge down to match the balsa edges. So I do it before I build it. I go ahead and cut these in or grind them in so that it helps get that angle started. As you can see here, I'm going to grind them just a little bit more before I'm done, which will take some of the pad out. And I'm going to get it to where I almost will not have anything to sand when I start shaping the fuselage. Certainly won't get anywhere near it sanding into this hardwood from where the balsa wood is. So I'm going to lay out a few more things and then we'll get back to a discussion on how this works. So the first thing we do, of course, is draw this out. Work everything off the center line. Now, one of the things that was a good idea for me here is to make my table into one of the datum lines or square lines, so I can use a small T-square. I can put it up against the edge of my table and I can work from there. So in order to do that, this line had to be square or parallel to the edge. So I measured from this edge to the center line, and made sure this line is square to the table so that I could just use the table as my T-square datum line. And then I could also keep all the formers square to that line. So now that we've drawn out basically where we want our formers to be, how we want the fuselage to pull together, the center line that we're going to work on, now this becomes the jig. And I've drawn a line exactly on center. These edges outside the fuselage really don't matter. This could be a 4-inch piece, this could be a 3.5-inch piece, but the fuselage at its widest point is 3 inches, so 3 inches is the minimum, because this also becomes the box of the fuselage. So I'm going to build off of this. So it will line up with the center line here and the center line here. And we could tape it down, any number of things. But when I was drawing all this out, I carried all of my formers, the lines, outside the fuselage so that I will know where I want to glue them. Now once I put the center lines on these, the center line will line up with the center line of this. What's outside of it is immaterial. What we want is for everything to work off this center line, the center line off here. And if this nose is on the center and we pull this tail together and it's on the center, what happens in between here is almost immaterial, within reason. These are pre-cut to the proper width, so the fuselage will pull up against them and will create a straight fuselage. Now the one negative is you're going to add the weight of this piece of wood to your airplane. Now this particular piece is 18 grams. When I get everything trimmed off of it down away from here, it'll be under 10 grams. In my world, under 10 grams added weight to ensure that a fuselage is perfectly straight is more than worth an airplane that's a little bit lighter. This airplane will be easier to trim, it will fly truer, it will also be stiffer than one without this tied in top lock. So to me, this is a no-brainer. This also means my fuselage sides can be a little thinner. One of the things that many guys have done is gotten away from 3/32 wing sheeting and gone to 77 thousandths. 1/16 gives you no room to sand. 3/32 is added weight that you don't need to carry. So what I've done is I've had Lone Star cut me, instead of 1/8, 100 thousandths. I double the nose area and then I 64th plywood it. So I've got two 100 thousandths doublers on the front half, 64th plywood. The other alternative that I sometimes do, and for the purpose of this airplane and this video, I didn't do it. Instead of the 64th plywood, I prefer to use carbon sheet. Now this is only 7 thousandths. It's lighter, it's stronger, it's impervious to fuel. You epoxy it just like you would the 64th plywood. This to me is a better alternative. But it is working with carbon fiber. You'll have to grind and sand on it. Cutting it is more difficult. So To some people, this would not be a choice they'd want to use. All of my airplanes today have been built like that. Now, later on, I will put carbon on this, even though I had plywood to here. I'll come back to F1, which is right in front of the wing, and this will all be carbon. That does two things. 7,000 carbon won't really weigh anything, but it also makes the tank and engine compartment, the major portion, fuel proof and extra stiff. Now, this airplane I'm building for the 76. The 76 is bigger, swings bigger props, and it's going to shake more. So what I want is a stiffer front end. Now make sure this goes all the way back and ties in to the wing. So I'm touching that much of the wing with my crutch. If I was running a 40, a 51, or even a 61, I wouldn't need that much stiffness. Those are much smoother motors. The 76 is a torquer. My Rojet 76 swings 14-inch props. It vibrates more, it shakes more just because of its sheer size and the size of the prop we're swinging. So I'm going to add that extra carbon up here for stiffness. I also use an open tank compartment. I don't build shells and cores in here. So from here forward, when I take the cowl off, it's just open. There's no formers running between the two fuselage sides. So this also helps stiffen that up. I leave this an open area because I run plastic tanks, which are a little bit taller. The headers all come, and pipes all come through here, so there's not much structure you can get in there anyways, and it always gets in the way taking stuff in and out, unless you make it removable. That to me is just, that's heavier than putting the carbon in. So, and it's not fuel proof, so I just put carbon in. This former will be balsa laminated with carbon both sides. This former will be plywood with carbon laminated on both sides, F1 and F2. So this whole compartment is fuel proof when I'm done. I don't have to worry about fuel soaking into it. So as you can see, this is our jig, but it's also a part of the fuselage. And once I get all the formers glued on here, then I will take and connect between the formers to shape the cut down here. Now there's two ways of doing this, and I'll probably end up doing it that way. You can build the fuselage outside or on top. And I'm leaning toward building it on top because then I don't have to trim this. All I have to do is pull the fuselage in to the formers once I get them glued in here, and then just sand off the outside, whatever is overlapping. Because these formers dictate the shape. And I've measured and pre-cut all of these, so they're ready to go to the next step, which is put center lines on them, and I'm going to cut push rod holes in them because it's easier to do it now than after it's assembled and come and try to back in and clear a hole. So I'll do that, and when we come back, I'll have these finished. And like I said, I think I'm going to go to a wider piece of wood. There's 3 inches. It's not wide enough. Well, actually, you know what it is. Fuselage sides can sit on top, which is where I want it. I don't want it on the outside, but it's going to sit right on the edge. So it'll be close, but we can work with it. And then the shape is sanded after I glued everything on it. Each one of these formers, I'll use a square to glue them on, so that it will be perfectly straight up and down, and the center line and center line are centered. CA will do the job, and once they're all glued on, then we just put the fuselage sides on. When we come back, we'll be to that point where we can almost start assembling this. Okay, as you can see, and here, we have windy videos going on in the background. We'll turn it down a little bit. I have the formers cut out, center lines put on them. I've yet to put the push rod holes and lightning holes in them. The pipe tunnel stops at 4, so I'm not going to cut that one out. But the rest of them will be lightened up a little bit. As it turns out, this is 14 grams, and I'm going to try to get it down to under 10 grams for these parts. Now this is the backbone of our crutch, and as you can see, there's a center line down here, and what I'm doing is I'm going to mark the position of the formers on this piece. And once again, since I've made this to where this line is parallel to the edge of my table, my T-square will let me mark where these go. Now, most of your kits you can do this because nearly all stunt planes are built with the fuselage flat on the table. This gives you a flat reference. The wings and the tail can all be jigged to this flat surface, so it gives you a datum line that you can work from. All we're adding to this structure is a piece of wood underneath it, and it becomes not only something that ties in the entire box to stiffen it up, but it becomes a fuselage jig. Now this is number 5, and this is where the pipe tunnel ends. Now I run an unusually long pipe, but determine where yours is before you determine how much cutouts you're going to put here and where the floor is going to be and all that. Many of the plans show it on there, but most kits. But I'm also getting a perpendicular square line here. So there's my formers. Now what I'll do is I'll take a triangle and I'll glue all these on the center line straight up and down. So each one will be glued. This is number 10, goes right here. Once I glue them all on, then I can just bring the fuselage sides up and pinch everything together. But once again, the important part of a straight fuselage is this line. I mean, you can even have something that looks like this, as long as this line and this line, which is the thrust line here, this is the rudder center. As long as this is all lined up, and then the wing, when you put it in here, is all lined up to this line, which in a later video I'll show about how to jig up the fuselage to your table, get the wing and everything set up. But for now, we want to make sure that this fuselage isn't like this. Well, you can't see it now, but what happens many times when building these things, this all looks real good when you start pulling it together, but when you sight down it, it's over like this. And that's because there was no center line established. What you can also do is you can do away with this piece of wood and draw a center line on a piece of paper and build over the paper. This to me adds in the extra structure of closing in the box, top and bottom. It makes it stiffer. But by the same token, this also lets me pre-glue all of these on here. Now if you're so inclined and you just got to get rid of that extra few grams of weight, after everything is built you can come back in and lighten this up. I don't think it's worth the weight savings, but you can if you want. Now in the wing area here, after the wing is all glued in and everything, I do come back in here and cut this out because it's totally unnecessary. So I'll get rid of quite a bit of weight right through here. But this back here I want as structure that keeps everything stiff. So we'll do a few more things. As you can see, I have a little metal triangle. You can make one out of wood or whatever. Now I'm going to glue these things perpendicular on these lines and centered. Got the center lines marked on here. I made sure all of these are square. And I'm going to take each one and glue it on its line. Center line and the cross line. And I'm going to try to make sure that it's straight up and down. The more accurate you could be here, the better off. But in the end, as I said, even if you get a little off this way, it still ends up on center everywhere. So if somebody were to sight down the side of your fuselage and they saw a little of this, that might be a pride issue. But when you fly it, everything will be square and on line. So we're just going to take each one of these. I can't see the center line on a lot of them that I cut push rod access hole way deep down, so I'm remarking them so that I can see a little better. I want to make sure I've got it on the center line. That's the primary thing. And then the secondary is that it be straight across this way and as straight up and down as you can get it on this triangle. Now, what I'll end up doing on the fuselage sides is I will mark the fuselage sides, but also the vertical straight up and down line, so that when I do glue it, if I have to move it a little bit, I can. Although there won't be much movement there. As you can see how this is progressing, I'm going to have to put a stop here so that I can push it up against there. I just tape down a piece of wood right here so that this goes to the right spot. So I don't have to pay attention to it when I'm gluing everything. This will all glue up. So as you see, it will progress nicely. I'll also cut this out before I do that. But our fuselage will be straight. Center line, and it'll all made up, and it'll make a huge difference whether your airplane flies right when you're chasing the trim on an airplane. And you have 2 or 3 things that the airplane's doing. What you'll get into is you'll chase one and the other one gets worse, or you'll get one fixed and another one will appear. So you still have 3 things you've got to find out or figure out. This goes a long ways to getting rid of a lot of that. If the wing is in straight, if the fuselage is stiff, if it is straight, built it on a center line, the tail is straight with the wing. The arguments that we're getting now with BOM rules about how somebody can buy a ARF or buy a component of an airplane really is silly, in my opinion. This is the most important parts. If you don't get the wing glued in straight to the tail, and it's three-dimensional, many times you'll get two dimensions straight and figure out, geez, I let the third one get out of alignment and I've already glued it. You either break it loose and refix it or re-glue it, or you've got a bad airplane. It depends on what you're looking for. So a few extra hours spent doing these little things makes that finalized airplane, which can't be changed once it's finished, painted. And these are one-piece airplanes for the most part. You have to build another airplane to get it right. So these are just a few things that will help you get it right. All right, we've pretty much put all the formers on here, and well, pretty much. I'll put a couple more right in here to help support in between the wings. Got a couple of things that I need to do on the fuselage halves. I want to put a support in here, 60-foot plywood support to help stiffen up right where the tail is cut out in here to go into the fuselage. But as you can see, hopefully, this works out. The fuselage, even if I pull it in now, it is right on the center line back here, so I have got everything on the center line. And we pull this side up. And we have an absolutely straight fuselage. It just can't be any other way because it's all built on a datum line. This together back here, I don't even have to think about it. It is on the center line. Absolutely perfect. And I have a center line on the crutch. I have a center line on the crutch, which also, when I lay it in here in the right spot and pull everything up to it, once again, it will all be on the center line. And all we've added to this structure to ensure that we have a perfectly straight fuselage is that one piece can be 16th, 3/32, and you make it the lightest piece of wood that you've got, because again, once it ties into everything, it's part of the structure, but the structure doesn't come from being very solid hard wood. It comes from tying everything in to making a box. So then this will not twist. When the stabs start throwing elevators up and high G maneuvers, it won't twist the fuselage. Plus, when you start cutting out for a pipe tunnel in here, it needs some meat in there. Because you're taking away from some of the structure to get the pipe tunnel in there. So we'll do some cutouts here and add some stiffeners back here for the stab, and then plan out the structure for the pipe tunnel, which comes all the way back to here. You can see it's quite a bit behind the wing, and a few other odds and ends, and we'll be close to gluing the fuselage sides on. Okay, now let's look down inside here and see how this looks. See how there's a line that everything lines up on. So we need to push that one over a little bit, but all of the formers are on line all the way to the tail. You see how even at the back here they come out exactly on the center line. So since our center lines will line up here, all I need to know is exactly where it sets. So I know with my engines, from the spinner ring to the front of this is 7/8 of an inch. So all I have to do is measure back 7/8 of an inch, draw a perpendicular line across with my T-square, line up the center line, and glue it on. Now when it comes time to glue the sides on, I'll use epoxy here, but all I have to do is brush a little epoxy there. I don't have to worry about anything moving while I'm trying to pinch things together. So let's glue that on. A lot of people would use their finger. I buy acid brushes by the hundreds. I'm just going to, once I get tired of having that stuff on my finger, I'm just going to spread this out with an acid brush. Make sure everything is touching glue. And one thing about aliphatic resin, it practically weighs nothing. And it's strong, and once it polymerizes, which takes a day or two, it's waterproof, it's fuel proof. Of course, anything will come loose if you leave it soaked in it. But oil doesn't seem to affect it. I'm trying not to get too much glue in my screw holes here because I don't want it clog it up. I don't use T-nuts. I use brass inserts, which makes it a little bit easier to keep from stripping things, twisting them. They start to rotate because they don't have good contact. With the T-nuts do. And these don't do that. I can use shorter screws. You don't have to go all the way in. Plus, it's easier to line up. And get right when mounting your engine. And make sure that I compress the glue. And when you compress it, it will slip and slide. You want to make sure it's back on there straight. Line up with this line, line up that line, make sure everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. If you erred on the side of anything that would be a little out thrust. So with the airplane being upside down, that would be out. So if you were flying inverted, that would be outside the circle, which the airplane is upside down right now. So I'm just going to, the width of the line, I'm going to make sure is at least on or slightly outside. And we're only talking a line width of a 64th of an inch. So that 64th of an inch would be less than a degree. Going from here to the nose. And I'm going to put a couple of weights on it just to stabilize it. This glue will dry fairly quickly. Once you put weights on something, you want to make sure that it doesn't slip or slide. And I'm going to get a good look at this center one. Like I say, I want to make sure that this front end is never inside. It's dead on or just fudging the line to the outside of the circle, to that flying circle. And yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with that. As when you would say, as President Nixon called me, but that would be D. Rice. Now what I'm doing here is I've put a rod in and I've shimmed it up exactly the height that the stab and the horn will be, and I just want to make sure that it clears all the holes going through the formers. Now that I've got that, it's get close time to start finalizing the sides and gluing them up. Okay, we're back with a little bit of setup. As you can see, this is my wing building table, but I wanted to pin the jig down so that I could push on the sides. As you can see, I've got them semi-clamped, but you can also see here's my sacrificial jig, which also becomes part of the fuselage. But as you can also see, everything lines up. All the lines connect up to the next one, and it's all on that one straight line down through there. And again, even though it might get wavy this way, which you can work out, or sometimes it's so minor you just leave it, it can still be absolutely perfectly straight. So we're getting close to gluing it all up together. Like I say, I put it on a wood board so that I can pin it down. I used aliphatic resin, Elmer's type glue, water glue, to glue my 64th skins, my doublers on, and it warped it just a little bit to where it's got a bow this way, so I'm going to have to exert some pressure to get it to pinch down on the formers. As you can see, all the formers, I'll use clamps and things to get it all pinched together. So when we come back, we'll have it all glued together. Okay, one of the things I want to show, earlier on the tape I explained how I sand a little bit of a radius here, as you can see, because I'm pinching into a 2-inch spinner, and I don't want to come to here and pinch it all in from this point to here. So I grind a little bit off here to help it, Now this area is plywood. I stop my plywood right here, or my fuselage doubler. So this part here I'm not too concerned with. I can bend that. But this is plywood, and many times I use carbon. So this area needs some help. Now let's go over here and let's look at how I do that. Now I come back a reasonable distance, and I take an X-Acto knife and I cut through the plywood and maybe halfway through the balsa, but I don't cut all the way through, obviously. And this allows this to be.
Now, really special thanks to Richard Oliver for sharing some of those tips, and we're going to continue to put some of them on. In fact, we're going to finish building this fuselage for one. There's a visit to Dub's shop, among other things, and actually physically how they make the motors, and a lot of information. I think there's more than one tape about how he set up his ARF, the Giles ARF. But for right now, this is what I'm doing. I'm making just piece after piece of this sandpaper, and the biggest tip toward grinding away on this paint, red lead, whatever, is you just got to keep throwing the sandpaper away, because right now we can't sand it wet yet. This is 220 paper, and I'm just grinding it out piece after piece after piece. I'm going to try to do this over the course of several days, each day getting a little more of it on, but we might use a whole roll of sandpaper. So maybe Bernie Trent ought to be sending us another roll of sandpaper pretty soon, because I've got about a half of the roll used up already, but it doesn't matter. What happens is this is the only realistic way I know to do this. Now, what I do is each time I sand down and kiss the raw wood, which you can see I've already gotten here, as soon as I hit the raw wood, I lay a coat of thin CA, wipe it with a paper towel, sand it again. And I want to, at this point in time, get that rough 220 tooth, that everything gets a nice grit, a nice solid, I don't know what we should call it, a physical mechanical tooth to the first layer of paint. I don't want to have, I'm not going to try to paint something like this. It's going to peel off like saran wrap. Even at this, because this is older paint and there's several different, we have the automotive stuff on it, which I'm trying to get most of it off. And then we'll probably put another coat, one thin coat of clear with the airbrush. Again, we're going to figure this out as we go, but right now, because this plane has been repaired twice, I don't want to add 2, 3, 4 ounces. I don't want to go making it way too fancy. I'd like to just basically get the body and canopy back to where it looks like it hasn't been crashed, and whether we're going to be able to do that an hour or two every day, well, it's not really important. We got the Spitfire to fly in the meantime, and we got these guys here with dumpsters and jackhammers and everything ripping off the front of our house, so this will be a good time to start this. Now, because they're still working on the house, listen, there's the tools going on here. What I thought I'd do, I'd get another thin layer of nitrous stain on the bottom of the fuselage, starting to fill that in the way I want, just a little at a time. Always better to put on a lot of thin coats and sand each one than to, if you glob it on, it just turns to jello. And there's just no substitute for putting on a lot of thin layers. The sun helps it dry. A day like today, it's nice and sunny out. It'll dry up in about a half an hour. Now that sun has really cooked this. This is the second coat. It's cooked it up real nice. And I may take the tail section off while we're doing it. Well, let's get one more coat of this on while the sun is shining out there. Anyway, again, Richard Oliver has his ways of doing things that I enjoy seeing other ways of doing things. The handles, for instance. Fuselage construction. One of the things you're really going to be impressed with is the footage of building a Rojet motor. And again, what happens to this, even after it's dry, you just gotta resign yourself to throwing it away. It's just no real other way to do this. Well, once we get done with the 220, I think what I'm going to try to do is backmask this and just put a coat of red paint on to see where I can get high spots. Again, I don't want to paint over paint over paint and have 10 layers of paint on this at some point in time. Now you can see what happens. Now what I do with this, I take and turn it 90 degrees and I can get one more set of cuts out of it, I guess is the right word. And then once it's all totally messed up, now I know I can just use the palm of my hand. And it's always a combination of sanding with a block and sanding by hand, both. Not one or not the other, both. Block, hand, and you build that contour back up, and then wherever I've gone through, thin CA and a paper towel until everything has the same hardness. You know, these are all the areas where it's going to need some more. That area is going to be soft balsa, but the thin CA, I'll take care of that right away. I got the better part of 4 hours of sanding here to get it to this point. I'm just looking around. What was really important was sanding off the decals, because this fuselage has two finishes, two complete finishes, and what happens as you go through the red into the silver, there's red underneath, so it really gets deceptive. And when I sanded off the decal, underneath was another decal, and what I was afraid was going to happen is that's going to pop through in the final finish. But you know, getting the decals off is a big part of it. But boy, my arm is tired. That's 4 hours of Steven Spielberg. Somebody that's a bodybuilding champion, Mark Spitz or somebody, I don't know, a swimming champion. So we're going to live to fight another day here. The weather's supposed to be nice for tomorrow, but the guys have stopped hammering on the front of the house. I want to go see what I have for a house now. It's sort of be pretty funny. They've been banging around all day out there. This is pretty funny. Karen says, "You're not going to put that shirt in the wash, are you?" Well, you know what? When you're doing a lot of sanding, those of us in the body shop business. Anyway, I want to go see the front of the house now that the banging is done. It's funny, all the birds were scared of these guys doing a demolition job. Guys, it's safe to go back to the feeder now. So here we have the railing going nowhere. That's pretty funny. Let's see, we used to have a little... Oh, they ripped it right off. My God. What a mess. Goes off front. I don't know, they're going to do the masonry work Monday. That gives me a couple of days of... Yeah, I could work on some of the paint work on the old Novanta there. I thought they were going to do this one day, but they have a crew comes in for this, then a crew for the masonry, and then a crew to dig, and a crew to get rid of the trees. So, I don't know, pretty complicated. Not the way John DeTavio and I did our demolition work years ago. No crew. Anyway. It's hard to believe how cool it's getting early in the morning like this. On the way to the field, you really do need a flannel shirt. And pretty soon that'll turn into you need a jacket, and then it'll snow, and Hey, but we're only about 2 weeks away from getting our field back. And that is an exciting time because we have really been limited, but we're certainly appreciative of the time we have. But I still would love to be able to stay there and do some testing now. And it looks like it's going to be a sunny enough day. Maybe I can even get some paint on the Novanta repair. I got a couple little projects on a motorcycle started, but nothing's finished. But it's always best. The best thing in the whole world is to get up early, get down to the field with Rich and John and Brian, although Brian's away at the shore with his family, and just get a couple of flights every morning. And it doesn't even matter what plane it's on. It's just good exercise. And it's just a lot of fun. As we go through the bridge, oh, look at this morning. Woo, 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 woo. As the sun is up, we're gonna beat the sun this morning. And if the wind happens to be blowing in that direction, it's really a problem. Oh, here's a real problem. One of the vets is sold. The white one is sold. Now the only one there is the blue one. Can you imagine how embarrassing that is? Everybody has a vet. Some people even have two, like Les. But Wendy's got nothing. He's vetless. But boy, we sure get to fly every morning. And that 2 hours of exercise, I don't know, I look forward to it anyway. And pretty soon we won't even have to put the barrels up. We'll leave them here permanently. Oh, this time of the morning, oh my God, is it nice here. just crazy. Banging around.
I gotta fix the cowl underneath.
Cool in the morning, and it warms up gradually. What are you gonna do? You're gonna take all the paint off? Take it right down to silver? I've been doing a Novanta with sandpaper. I didn't want to get anything wet, you know? Sandpaper.
I'm gonna
buy a couple rolls of sandpaper and just grind it off.
I'm gonna use Gene said to use acetone.
Yeah, you can take it off with acetone. But I don't want to get the Novanta wet. That's the problem. And you know what? Where you got that automotive stuff, the acetone doesn't take it off. You got to sand it off.
I don't have any automotive paint.
This is all dope? Okay.
This is all Rhodite.
Yeah, okay. Well, then that should come off easily, except where the decals are.
Yeah.
You'll have a problem getting them off.
Oh, I'll heat it.
Oh, they come off with heat?
I would think so. They're
Well,
regular decals.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess we'll find out. We are going to have the Warbird rebuild-a-thon this winter. Jeez. I can't believe how many planes we got that need maintenance.
You know,
Like a taxi cab company here.
I bought 6.
I bought 4. The girl told me they're on aisle 10. And they didn't say a word. I went to the register. She looked at me funny. She's thinking, boy, this guy must really smoke a lot of this.
Yeah.
This guy must be
The guy asked me, he says, what do you do? What are you going to do with all of this?
Yeah.
I said, I start my lawnmower. I wasn't going to tell him I started.
No, you get, geez, they'll hit the button there where they come and take you away.
Well, I'm afraid that someday they're going to discontinue that stuff.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Because, you know, fewer and fewer people are smoking.
Well, they don't use cigarette lighters either. They use
they
those
don't
are
use
disposable things.
Yeah, they don't use cigarette lighters, so what kind of a market do you think they have?
Yeah, you know, we'll have to try ether in the winter.
Cool.
Brian will find something, I'm sure. Listen, what are we paying him all this money for if he can't come up with some inventions? Bronson Dooley. Boy, I love it when it's cool like this in the morning. When I go out to get the paper, oh, that coffee tastes so good.
Oh, yeah.
It's unreal.
See this little crack?
Yeah. Hey, you do it over the winter. You're going to have plenty of time, believe me. Winter comes quicker than you think here.
Yeah, I know.
Every year I think the flying season's going to go on forever. It doesn't.
Oh, that's for sure.
Only if you live down south.
It seems that every year, summer months go by in a flash.
Yep, you bet. Imagine these poor guys have a summer house. You pay all that money, you get about 3 weekends and you're done. One flipper now, baby. Give me the one big one flipper deal. Richard Oliver says one flipper is all you need. If you're a one flipper. Let's go.
Ready? Got that?
One flip.
See the prop?
Now we had to keep, if you remember yesterday, toward the end of the day, I don't remember if it was the last flight or not, we had a whole, actually 2 flocks of geese go through here, right at the height that we're flying at. Oh my God. Now as I look back at the tape from yesterday, I could see what was happening right off the bat. I had an issue with the wing over, with that kink in the top of the wing over, and I had just gone to sleep at the switch. And that's what's good about looking at you flying every day at the end of a flying day, that you don't go back to bad habits. And we're trying to encourage Rich, of course, to, now that he's a second place world champion here, stay on it. Now we got these refinish jobs underway. I'm going to work on an Ovanta a couple hours, 3 hours a day, whatever. But the problem with my life is that there's always so many projects, and I have to make a list every morning of what the priority is, because I could be, today for instance, I could be doing about 7 things that are not high priority. And the priority is we only have these so many months of flying, and I want to get the flying in. And for me, this is my exercise program. It's not only just flying. And I like to get at least 2 hours here and at least 8 laps on the track every day. Then I can eat all the pizza I want. Okay, let's see if he's got it. Ooh, he's making some progress. But see, what's going to happen? Good! What's going to happen is, and it happens to me, of course, is I'll come out here and I'm tired or the coffee hasn't kicked in. I go right back to the big kink in the top of the wing over or some other distorted thing. You got to stay on top of it. As Richard Oliver so correctly says, you got to stay on top of it. Anyway, and those things we got from Richard Oliver, those, I call them hints and tips and ideas. I love that stuff. Everybody has a little unique way of doing things. You can steal ideas from all of them. The idea of building a fuselage on a center line, an excellent way of doing it. But again, all of these ideas are not the only ideas. See, now Rich has gone back to doing eggs. See this? Eggs. Stretch it out! I don't know why they're paying me all this money. See, the minute you fall, you go back to your old habits. There we go. Stretch it out. Fly it. Intersection, middle of the truck. Good. He's still got that inside angle. I still think it's a trim thing with this plane. He disagrees. I don't see a trim tab on it. But I think that's part of not having a trim tab on the plane. When it's soft on that part, it almost always needs a trim tab on the top of the outside wing to straighten it out. But what could I possibly know? But Rich is certainly no counterpoint to this, getting better with each flight. Anyway, we got our schedule today, and one of the things we'd like to try to do is do some more sanding and another layer of that filler, because we have a lot of areas that are deep on that need to be filled in. And I much prefer to do it in a lot of thin layers. That's the trick of using that material. And just throw the sandpaper away. That is the trick. do?
Nothing. He marches to a different drummer.
Boy, this is turning out to be yet another good day. And you never let one of these slip away because you could have 2 weeks of rain or 2 weeks of craziness or something.
So he said, I understand. I said, listen, I'm not.
Well, what a sin it would be to waste a day like today doing cleaning the garbage like these guys over here with the dumpster. Yes, yes, it is a beautiful day. And we appreciate that God has sent us a beautiful day. This day is hanging in like I've never seen. Cool, pleasantly cool. Richard Oliver, eat your heart out. We haven't even had anybody drive out in a circle. Hey, did you see those geese yesterday? We had no geese. Nobody walking in a circle. Stun heaven air. But you know, there's always something.
Have a good day.
take care of this damn thing while I feel like doing it. I know. What the hell are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I'll give you $100. Get me a case too.
He said he was having difficulty getting.
And what we're going to do with Rich's plane, as we're trying to coach and help Rich, we're still working on an inside square. I think it still needs a trim tab, but I think also it's turning quicker outside than inside. So what we're going to try to do is just move the up, open the up part of the handle up 1/8 of an inch, just 1/8 of an inch. And you're going to have to reset neutral. Oh, just be careful the first time you fly it. You're going to have to move neutral 1/16 of an inch. Do you know what I'm saying?
Why?
Well, try it. Look, you're a highly skilled individual. You'll probably the plane's going in. 1/8 of an inch. That's all. And then if it's better, we'll go another 1/8. He's got a Casminato handle, I think, and he could go about 1/4, but we like to go half of that amount, just to see if he could get well, looking at it from his point of view, it's getting soft here. Outsides, this plane just, if he could get the same turn outside as inside, this would be a deadly plane. This would be a really deadly plane. But I always have the feeling these kind of things, you're trading Peter to pay Paul here. Let's see if he can adapt to this. This will be interesting. Oh, the idiots are here with their music. Oh, man. Boy, the minute they get here,
Apparently, there are more than 1 million Americans who suffer from this, and it's sleepwalking.
Oh, I ought to drown them out. Yeah, I ought to get
to move around and be able to know that you're opening your refrigerator and making sandwiches.
You see what we have to put up with here? It's a living hell. Having to get up at 4:30 in the morning to get down here to get some flights to listen to this crap.
Don't believe him. We don't get up at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's not a living hell. Don't believe what he says.
This is terrible. Terrible. Richard Oliver walks out of his bathroom, he doesn't even have his pants buckled, and he's got a flight.
Richard Oliver goes ahead and does square 8s on his underwear.
Oh. He can fly without being dressed. Well, I can't wait to go see his house. Oh, we'll see him in a couple months. All right, let's fly.
But yeah, when you and I were drinking, my brother Jenny's mom has shred, which once again is related to eating disorders. Is that true, Jenny?
Yes, you will wake up
All right.
Let's go, Chickie.
Contact.
I'm wasting all my hair.
Clear the problem.
Okay, this should be interesting. Now, anytime you make any kind of a handle adjustment, of course, you should just be super safe. Don't try to whack bottoms or anything, but now here, let's go so Rich can play this back. You know, this wing over thing, the entry point and the exit point are not the major dominant thing in the pattern that I don't like. And we were just discussing what he needs to do. He's working on his wing over track too. Watch where it comes out. Now what he did, he added 1/8 of an inch of up to the handle. So we want to see how that's going to affect things. Now I'm not concerned with the round loops or inverted flight at all. It's the inside squares. And it's the track over the top leg that I think between the second and third corner is the issue. But we're going to find out if this is comfortable for him. And it doesn't take much to get And I already made it a handle adjustment to the Spitfire. Basically because in the hot, thin air, the last time we flew this was at the team trials, I had the handle opened all the way up. Oh, much better. Good! Much better. Maybe this is what he needed all along. But we'll find out. Let's see. Now, of course, he's traded Peter to pay Paul. Plenty of corner outside. In fact, more than you need. I would even open his handle up more on insides. It's not hurting a thing here. Not hurting a thing. See, now under some scenarios you can gain without trading too much away on the other side. And this is one of them because the handle now is bigger. Let's see. Nice. See, but here, right here it's soft. See, that didn't have a defined tip. The point was like, and that's why I know it needs a trim tab. But maybe the combination of both, and we're going to spend some time the rest of the day here working on this. I don't know how good we're going to get it. The intersection's the middle of the truck. Close. See, he's going back now. He's not thinking about it. As soon as you stop thinking about it, this has to open up and open up. Now this will be the telltale sign on the square. Third corner's better. Still plenty of corner outside. I wouldn't even waste time. I'd just open a handle up the rest of the way and just get used to it, tough it out. Because this definitely, in my opinion, is definitely better than it was. And sometimes it's just little things like this, the handle trim. Handle trim can make you crazy when it's not right. There's plenty of turn on outsides, plenty of turn. Now why he's diving and off on angles a little bit, what happens is when you move the handle, in essence, you've altered the neutral. And you can see from that little thing that Richard Oliver sent in about handles that's on this tape, it sounds like a lot of that stuff is nonsense. Why don't you just pick up an easy adjust and go fly the plane, or a U-Really or something? You got to find a handle and a setting that works for you. And that handle setting from one flyer to another can be dramatically different. Richard Oliver and I have he's got his wrist biased, he's got a big overhang, and my handle is completely different. And yet the flights, you're making up for the ergonomics and the, especially when one person is very strong. I'm sure Richard is much stronger than I am physically to put the inputs into the handle. So I always bias my stuff for a lot of leverage, a lot of power steering. When I'm flying a plane, it's just like it's on ball bearings. There's no effort to turn it at all. But again, that setup that I like requires a lot of practice. That's not a set it and forget it setup. All right, so we'll see at the end of this flight if Rich is happy with this and if he can, well, we can use some of this technology.
Does that feel better?
Yeah, I saw that one.
I got scared.
Yeah, take some time.
Listen to what these kids listen to. You hear what these kids are? I got my baby wipes. Listen to this stuff. No wonder these kids have no interest in model aviation. That's what's wrong with this whole generation of kids. Listen to this trash. And we get, as soon as these kids pull in here, we got to listen to this stuff. While you're flying, you got to listen to baby wipes. Unbelievable. I'm going home to work on the Novanta. Heck with them. Take that, you teenagers. Now we had a great flying session, but that music, I'll tell you, that could make you crazy. And you can hear it. They have that gigantic sound system. Anyway, this is the cowl that's semi under repair, and what I wanted to do before I do anything with the fuselage, I wanted to do a little test here. And the test is if the red Brodak dope is going to go over the sanded out substrate, which I don't really know if I can't really tell if I've gotten off all of that 2-part, and I'm just afraid maybe it's going to alligator skin up on me and I'll have to do something. But I thought of a way to test it that would be pretty, I guess, reliable. Is I'll take a small part like this that had to be refinished anyway, spray on some, we have plenty of this red paint from Bob Brookins, so that should be no problem. And I can actually, if I have to use 2 or 3 sandouts, I can use it for filler, in fact, because we have so much of it. But the idea is now I don't want to put any weight at all extra on this. So I'm going to try to put it on with the small spray gun as thin as possible. And then possibly, if I really can, get one thin airbrush coat of that automotive clear on. Because I haven't taken off all of the old finish. I've got some of it off, but certainly not all of it. And this plane already, from the first repair and this repair, I don't want it to turn into a, you know, a battleship or something. So I need to jig this up and see if this red paint, it's a nice bright sunny day, so what that does, it minimizes the penetration. I'll spray it out in the sun, see if this one coat, if I can then wet sand this down with 600 and put on a real coat of red, I think we'll be in great shape. But I did all the repair inside, reinforced it. This part was kind of beat up from the crash. Now remember our objective here, this is going to be hard to do because the sun is in a funny position. What I want to do is put the minimum amount of finish on this to just make it red. And I'm thinking probably 2 or 3 thin coats. If I sand it between, it's going to be fine, but we're going to find out. So in essence, what we're going to be doing is really using this paint for a coat of filler. And if I can get enough on here, this is going to get sanded out. So right now, it really isn't critical to keep it minimized. And once that dries, I'll be able to wet sand that with 600 and maybe get on what hopefully will be a final coat. Now this is dried for a few minutes and I'm just looking to see it covers so well. Don't really need the coats of silver. If we were working from raw wood up, I'd use the silver, but I take for granted there's going to be some flaws in this anyway. Now, once this dries up, again, what I'm hoping I can do is 600 sand this. This will really be a good test. Now, if I've missed a couple of spots on this, I will know when it dries if it's got little alligator skins or if it wants to peel up. But, you know, we don't have an all-perfect world here. We're going to have to go to war with the army we have, but I think that's going to work out fine. And the trick always when letting parts dry, I like to dry them outside where the the air temperature is warm, but I don't ever want them in the sun. Now I'm under an umbrella, which keeps this area shady for the whole day. We'll see what that looks like in an hour or two. Now while I'm just putting in hour after hour of sanding, one of the neat things, Don Herdman's grandson Matt, of course, you saw him at Lee, he was shooting video, he's actually getting better and better. He shot some footage for me at, I think some of it is the official flights, but he nicely, and I had donated a set of Nats tapes to his cause. He's going to be coming to the Nats next year. And he put together a little collage of the footage he shot at both at his house in his backyard and with Don Herdman, and some footage from Flushing that we haven't seen yet, but it's pretty interesting. I think it's some of the official flights, in fact. And while I'm sanding away, not many people want to watch me sanding hour after hour, but it's getting to, the hours are rolling up on this project, but as they are, I've just come out again to check that everything's drying. This is drying up beautifully, and the next piece I'm going to try to work on is that little tail section. But check this out, there's some little outtakes from Matt, Don Herdman.
Yeah. Okay, here's Wendy. Flying the Ferrari. 70s. Beautiful day for a contest. Nice flight. What flight is it supposed to be?
What's that, what?
He's flying like a the high flight or something like that.
I don't know. You got to check your line stuff. You got 60 feet.
Yeah. I think they are.
Huh?
I think they are.
So that's in the handle to the plane.
Oh, hands up to the plane? That's not, no, it's more than 60 feet.
It's 62.
Now we got the next layer all sanded out here. Actually, I'm just going to let that dry. There's a little touch up to do. I got the tail section to do. And then we'll see if we can get some of the paint on this. Maybe even today. If not today, tomorrow. Now this piece, see, we got to be really careful. This has, the decal has already peeled off and it left that residue. So I'm going to have to really be careful when I grind and sand that down. Also back here, I don't want to add even one millionth of an ounce. I don't have to. I want to minimize this whole, the amount of weight that's on here. So I'm going to get out the M600, get ready to sand this down. Well, one of the more difficult parts of doing this is working around where the decals were. And I've been trying to dry sand that area until a decal is, well, you can see how much more I've got to do. The idea being, of course, don't want to add any weight to the tail at all, or as little as possible. You can see what happens here. And by the way, thanks to Matt. Matt is really, he's following in my footsteps. He's got a nice person. Well, so do I. Nice personality, and he's learning the ins and outs of interviewing women, which is, of course, the primary thing of being a videographer. Now, see, here is the problem. As I sand through the decal, I'm down into the silver already, but I'm not out over here. So I've got to really be careful, because I'd like to minimize the amount of area that I go down into the raw wood. Then as I go into the raw wood, I'll seal this with thin CA. You know, one thing I found out, I've used about a half a roll, this sandpaper that Bernie Trent has graciously donated to our cause, but you can't really salvage or clean it. Once it fills up with this goop from sanding this automotive paint, this automotive clear. See, if this just had Brodak dope on it, I could just go take acetone and wipe this finish off, especially on a take-apart plane. Can't really do that. Once you put the automotive stuff on, you're kind of married to the mob here. You've got to, well, married to somebody anyway. But you can see it's just a matter of time, and you can get this, but the idea is to get it with the minimum amount of area that goes down into raw wood, because then that's more area you have to seal with thin CA, and it just multiplies the amount of work you have to do when you're getting ready to do the refinish. And of course, the time is of no essence now, because we want to get this with the minimum amount of paint on it. Now, if you're real lucky, if it's your lucky day, this is what can happen with automotive paint. If you see the piece that's peeling off here, what happens as you start to sand it, you can get a brand new blade. Let's see if we can get some underneath there. And look at how that automotive paint peels right up. So that's a lot easier than sanding. Well, and again, I am going to spend, in fact, I'm going to spend the rest of this session of a couple hours just working this part, because this part has a lot of paint on it from the repair. The first repair, we had to repair the rudder, and if you look, it's a brand new blade. I don't know what the right word is, but I call that saran wrapping. And look how you can take the finish right off. You can take it off in big chunks like that. There it comes right off like that. It's amazing. Now, there may be some advantage to have an automotive finish on top. I'm not sure, because this is peeling up and I'm down to the original finish. Remember, that's where this all is a problem, is when you build up way more finish. Look at this, it's coming off almost like monocoat. Anyway, but we're down. That's the original finish from, well, from when the plane was new. And it was 61 ounces, don't forget. That's something worth striving for. I made the rudder just a little bit smaller. I was afraid to go any further in here because this is perfectly flat now, so I'm hoping, because once I go into the decal, that's going to be a divot, so I'm a little skeptical about that. But what I want to do is, tonight's Karen's cooking class, so I'm going to try to get at least one coat of red on this and then put it aside to dry overnight. Okay, the first coat of red is going to be up there drying overnight before we could work on it again. And as time's available, we're going to try to get the first coat of red on this in the next couple of days. The cowl is ready for its second coat once it's sanded out, but we'll do a little bit each day. Little by little, we're going to get this guy put back together. Now this morning we got some really good, well, good news anyway. I took a look at that paint that we did on the cowl and on the tail section yesterday. That's drying up nice. That'll be ready for the next coat tomorrow. Today, this afternoon or tomorrow, I don't know. I always, if I'm not in a rush to do something, I always like to let paint dry a little bit extra. The longer the better. And when it dries outside in that nice warm dry air instead of the damp cool cellar, always better off, of course. And then once I'm satisfied that those little areas are going to work out fine, then the next step will be to do the fuselage. Mask off the wing and tail and do the fuselage. Anyway, the sun is coming up. We want to beat the sun to the field. Get a couple hours of flying, and boy, it's less than 2 weeks and that field is going to be ours again. And we invade Poland. This hour in the morning, I'm telling you, when that sun is just coming up over the horizon, oh my God, does this get me inspired. In all the years, now this plane is now officially 10 years old. Made in 98, flown in 99. Here it is 2008, 10 years later. And we're going to do the big, I promise, over the winter. This will get the full rebuild, repaint, touch up, whatever. We're really getting a lot of good use out of this plane. I'm amazed. Actually, all of these planes have served us well. And Rich is going to do his rebuild on the Wounded Warbird too. What I have 4 Doran's, the ones we made from Doran's mold, the 3 blades. And I want to put each one of them on for a couple of flights today, depending on whatever time we're going to get to fly till. I don't think John's going to be here today, at least that's what Rich thinks. So we will get a few flights. Now I know the one that I started with, I know that's the lowest pitch of the bunch, and I have one marked medium. So I guess we'll just go right through them one at a time until we find one that's going to be good for this air density. Any air density is beautiful today. We're not dealing with the summer air anymore, it doesn't look like. Well, we got one done. This one is way too low, so I'll match it. That's really low pitch. That'd be for our real winter flying. But we pretty much have like a set with one, and I didn't mark 2 of them, so we're gonna have to mark them all before the day is over. Pretty good day to do this. What I like to do while I'm prop testing is have a little Sharpie marker, these silver Sharpie markers. We got one to go. The one that's on there now is close. And I like to always put a little bit of it when I'm going to use a prop. That little silver at least shows you where the end of the prop blade is when you're running the motor, starting the motor, etc., etc. So once I get done with deciding which one of these props is going to be appropriate for the time and day at hand, then we'll start coaching Rich again and maybe even get a couple flights recorded. And we'll look at it. But this is a significant thing. Getting this out of the way today, that'll be one less thing to deal with while we're fixing the Novanta. And every day I'm going to work on that Novanta for 2 or 3 hours until I get it, bring it back. Now I really think in the time that we've been working with Rich, He's really improved his flying. And I don't know how much benefit the videos have been to him, but it sure doesn't look like it hurt. And Rich brought up a good point earlier today when we were testing the props on a Spitfire. And it's a valid point. He says, you know, I told him about stretching things out. Stretch out that round horizontal 8. And he says, but from inside the circle, it looks just perfect. Yeah, that's the problem. If you could put the judges inside the circle, put them, you know, behind you or something inside, that might be, you know, might be the answer. But unfortunately, most of the contests we go to, the judges are outside the circle, and what they see from outside the circle is what they judge. Now, I know he did not want to put the trim tab on this morning, and he had his reasons, but he did make a significant handle change the other day, and I want to see, but I'm still convinced this plane needs a trim tab. This got better yesterday. These inside squares got better. I'd say it's half better. I don't want to yell out good to him because that was not perfect. It's more than halfway there now. Outside squares, he doesn't really have an issue with these, except when he misses bottoms. And the prop that he likes to use, this volley that he's got on here, is soft. Right about there, the plane almost stops. So, and because it's got a lot of elevator travel and big elevators, it just, like water skiing, it slows down in the corners. See, here's a tip-off that you need a trim tab, right there. See how soft that corner is? When that triangle corner is soft, it's telling you you need a tab on the top of the outboard wing, or a tweak. And you can do it by feel. You don't even have to look at the wing. Now stretch it out. Let's get back here. Eggs. Eggs. Stretch it out! It is there, there. It's that third corner that goes down on an angle. And see, because what's happening is as you fly across right here, it's soft on tension. You can't input it correctly. That's what, well, maybe at some point in time Rich will agree with me, but I don't like to get too pushy about trim changes because it's a very subjective thing. And what he's feeling and what I'm seeing might be two different things. And a lot of it might be, just as Richard Oliver said in that little handle dissertation, that he just gets himself in a body position where it's hard to input those controls. Now see, that corner's nice. So it could very well be Rich, that he's just in an awkward body position for that kind of stuff. I don't know. Alright, so after this flight we'll have our usual little 5-minute talk. But I still think it needs a trim tab. You look like you got half of that amount, but can't you?
hit that third corner harder? Is it that you can't hit it? Maybe you get off one right? I don't understand what you mean. Man, first one is fine. You go up 90 degrees. This one, you used to go up here. Now it's half that. But that third corner, it never comes to the ground. It's like a triangle. I think you can just hit it harder. I gotta hit it a little bit harder. Yeah, maybe it's just, you know, maybe it's just that you're not hitting it hard. I don't know. right now.
Well, we accomplished our goal here. We got what I think is the best of the 3-blade props. What?
You gotta concentrate on your wing over, because occasionally you do this.
Not occasionally, but every third time.
Yeah.
Why do you think I record it? Look, I want to stretch him out. I'm recording these flights, baby. If I see
Every
that
once in a
horizontal,
while.
and he's gonna hit it harder this time. There we go, right here, down.
I think of Cosmonato when he played the game.
You know, and forget practicing all this, you know, inverted flight. Who cares about inverted flight? Get more round. More round. He's even got me crazy now. Blind leading the blind here. The 3 blind mice of Rutherford.
What he was imitating.
Yeah, I know, Cosmonato. Yeah. Windy's wing over. Not every time. I'm working on it. All right, come on. I want to see another flight. But for sure, what you want to do, for sure, you want to concentrate on that horizontal 8, inside square. Those are the two. Those are the two that are just
Killing me.
just horrible.
Killing me.
That inside square, I know. And I know you need a trim tab, but that's okay. You're going to eventually be like,
We're gonna come around.
you're going to come around, but it's slow. It has to do with the IQ of the person. Money, just because you got a lot of money doesn't mean you're smart. Oh, man. Whoa, look at that. That's beautiful. As Karen so rightly says to me, just because you have a cute wife doesn't mean you're smart. Look at that. That's pretty cool. I wonder where he's going. I never. No, that's a decent jet. I'm going to Peterborough. That's a heavy jet. Are you kidding me? Just had a jet fly. Normally, a little business jet. That's a big head. That's going to. Or maybe he's getting waved off or something. That's very unusual. Because the VOR is right in Peterborough. You know, where they make their turn. All right, show me a good flight. I'm judging.
I gotta clean my line.
We're at the nets.
I gotta clean my
Red
line.
Buck has just had a bottle of whiskey. He says, oh no, Rich is getting better. I better start drinking again. Oh man, I'm telling you. It's like pulling teeth. He's got to have a drink. Look at this. Clean the lines. Now get tensed up like this is a real flight. Billy Suarez is in the tent and he's all nervous.
Yeah.
There goes his first place trophy. Downriver. And your hourglass has gotten so good lately, I don't even look at it. When you're doing the hourglass, I know you've got that. So if you could just get the inside squares now, you could be a contender. When I adopted him, I had no idea he was going to be this difficult of a child. Did you fuel this up yet?
Yes.
You know, it'd be a big help too if you had a prop with a little more bite to it. You got any more of these props? You know, your plane almost stops in outside squares.
You think so?
You could use a little bit bigger prop, a little more pitch. Okay, great. We got all this time. Why not give it a shot? You know.
I got other props.
You got one a little bit bigger. I'll pitch it up. I'll marry up the pitch.
I can't believe how filthy these
Yeah. Oh yeah. The seagulls do a job on us. So this is the test. The test is when you're in practicing and practicing. It doesn't mean anything. When you're under pressure. He knows the whole world is watching this video. People all over the planet are going to critique this flight.
All over the universe.
All over the universe, they're putting money down at Las Vegas.
All the way out to Saturn.
Oh. Out on the space shuttle, they're taking practice flights. Oh my God, what's fun. All right. Okay, Ron, you're making me crazy. I'm not that sane to begin with. I had a good head start on you.
I don't have to try very hard.
All right. I don't want to yell out once this flight. If you don't hear me yell, you know it's okay. Third corner, harder, hit it harder. In fact, back up a little bit as you hit. Back up a half a step.
That's how you go. Ready? Yeah. Contact. Ready. One flip. Clear the prop.
Time to see if he's knuckles down. See now, the wing over is so much better than it was a month ago. Now look at where the exit point is, just for an example. You're right about in the middle of those trees. Now just watch the exit point. Not too bad. Probably better than mine. But those inside squares, oh my God. Talking about my wiggling going over, Rich. That one's better. Okay. But it is fun critiquing each other, and if we're going to be out here every morning for 2.5 hours of exercise, we may as well get some exercise. I don't see any value in practicing inverted flight much myself. Even though this is a repaired plane, it flies fine. In fact, all we're flying lately is repaired planes. It's ridiculous. Talked to Richard Oliver yesterday. He's installed a Raby rudder on his ship to do some experimenting and some different trim he wanted to try. I think you'll find that to be a useful tool. All right, I'm going to hold this steady now. Here. 90, better. Oh, good! Good! Oh my God. Don't tell me he's finally seeing it the way I do. When he sees this video, he is not going to believe it. See, because you don't see it that way. Now, the outside squares are always fine. He doesn't have an issue with outside squares, except that he does too many of them. Not sure why. Not sure what that's all about. Now, it's this point on the triangle. The point that faces up. That's soft. And sometimes you can just back up and it'll get better. See, the other thing, he's laying it down too much. See, what this should be is more of a point. He's making it flat. Now, we'll talk about that before the next flight. Because whatever we're doing to Coach Rich, the same thing. Now, let's see if he gets away from the eggs. A little bit better. Semi-eggs. Good! I'll give him 2 goods on that. Now let's see if he forgets. See, but what happens, as soon as you relax or you don't have your coffee or you start thinking about what you got to do that afternoon, is the grass mowed, is the cat fed, all of a sudden you go right back. Your subconscious drags you right back. So he's got the square 8 figured out a lot better now. Intersections in the middle of the truck, much better. And to watch these, you got to put that tape down the middle of the TV screen. Without that tape, you don't get a good reference. I still think it needs a trim tab. Because that triangle gets up here, it just, he can't seem to get a point on it. He'll come around. But I think, see, what I'm amazed at is how much progress, and it's only in the last month or so we've really been coaching each other like this, and looking at videos of each other's flights and trying to come up with what's the worst error we can work on. Now I'm kind of a self-contained thing because I go home every day from flying and spend a couple hours while I'm sanding things or working on making pipes or something. I just have the video playing and I put the tape on the screen and look at my flights anyway. But if you didn't know how to do that, how would you know if you're even getting better, see? The trouble is sometimes you have a gross error of perception and you just keep practicing and get it perfect. But my feeling is, and Rich Oliver agrees 100%, the video doesn't lie. The video isn't like a judge that says, oh, you're a cool guy, I'm giving you a 38. Video doesn't care. If you bobble a bottom or wiggle something or miss an intersection or do a crappy windy wing over, it doesn't lie. It's very merciless. And when Rich sees some of these videos, I think he's going to be very impressed with his progress, to be honest. I think he's going to be very impressed. Now he's critiquing me, so.
Hey, you had some good stuff in that flight.
How was the square 8?
Yeah, much better. But keep going. You're not there yet.
And the inside square was still screwy?
You're halfway there.
You gotta hit it hard.
You're going in the right direction. Instead of just flying around here and wasting fuel.
I gotta still hit it harder.
Why don't you open that handle up the rest of the way?
No, I'm afraid to.
Don't you have an extra handle you can adjust? Keep that one. You got more than one handle. What are you doing?
Yeah, I got 3 doors.
Open one up a little bit. Well, you got two more doors. All right, come on. Hold up. Why they have to do it? You're at 8. thing too, triangles. They're doing pancake angles. Get more straight up. Makes it easier. Because until you put the trim tab on, it's going to be soft there. In other words, when you do it off like that's right. That's right. Which makes it harder at the end to get it in. You know, right. Yeah, because that last corner.
Oh, it's a killer. Sure.
It's different.
What a day. I don't know what happened to us this week. We just lucked out. I want to get back home and start working on it. See, in this weather here, when I put paint on a plane, it'll be able to, you'll sand it out one day even. It won't matter. I'm guaranteeing you will. It's dry, it's warm, it's just beautiful out here. All right, we're going to start working on getting knuckling down with Rich here. So you can see what's happened is somebody with a Prius, and it turns out Rich knows this guy. We talked to him for a while. He's doing a bird survey on herons, and we told him, whatever you do, don't drive out in a circle. Well, guess where he is. And what it means is, see, if the wind changed and you backed up, it'd be a problem. He'll be safe right now, but boy, we had a spectacular, just spectacular day. Just couldn't be better. And I think Rich is really coming around. Then we got some positive stuff done on the props that we were trying to see, because we're going to be maybe using this plane for the next couple of weeks while an Ovanta's under repair. We'll have to see how it plays out. So you're wondering, is Karen out every night at baking class? What does she do at baking class? Oh, she's learning how to make little bears. Oh, I smell lunch coming up here. This is Karen's little pride and joy. What do we call these guys? Clowns, I guess. And what is this? This
is cupcakes for your birthday, and there's some.
My birthday's, well, my party is next.
Your party's tomorrow.
My family party is tomorrow. You just keep having parties from me. I'll keep getting younger. These are nice. So, you know, I'm down here and I'm sanding out these parts, trying to wet sand these out, and I'm thinking, I smell cupcakes upstairs. The smell of cupcakes motivates me. Do I get one of these for lunch?
No.
I'll tell you one thing, the birds like these.
They can't have it.
And they will like them, that's for sure. Anyway, they look good.
I have a mess upstairs.
That's what you did at the baking class last night?
No, I did this today.
Oh, you were up there today?
I made these today.
See, I don't even know what she does at these baking classes, because I'm out.
It's not a baking class, it's a decorating class.
Decorating class. I'm out wet sanding, bringing an Ovanta back to life. Wet sanding hour after hour after hour. In complete obscurity. Anyway, you can see what I anticipated doing. I cut up about 100 sheets of 600 sandpaper. But this part is coming out. These are the parts we painted yesterday. The paint is dried up. This has to be sanded, of course, and another coat put on. Now when I'm doing this, I look around for little bubbles, little cracks that I could work on. Here's a dry spot right here. Right here, let's see if we can identify a dry spot. So I'll be very careful sanding there. But from this point on, we'll be using the red actually for filler here. And I don't want to sand through. As soon as I see I'm going through, that's the end of that coat. And we'll spray another coat of red. But it's coming around. I may even get a coat on the body today. Just so I have something to, as it's drying over the weekend, I can let it dry. And it's always better if you let this dry a full day, even though you could sand it an hour later or 2 hours later. The more drying time you have on that, definitely is better. Now it definitely, I think it does anyway, it definitely pays at this point in time just to detail this out, because the red that's on here now is actually taking the place of all the red that's on the plane, and the coats of silver. We're actually using it in a way for filler. And then I want to put the absolute minimum of clear on it as a way of trying to save, you know, some of the weight, because we've added a lot of weight in repair here. There's been almost a full 5-minute tube of epoxy gluing this thing back together. I'm sure it didn't make it lighter, but when we're done, we could probably save an ounce of weight here. And if we could save an ounce on a tail, means we can pull out some of the weight in the nose, and we did have some nose weight in there since the first crash. Before the first crash, we needed no nose weight. But every time you add weight behind a CG, and this plane of course has no tip weight at all in it. Even has the cover is hollowed out, and well, the biggest thing here is going to be, and I haven't figured out exactly how I want to get the blend between the wing and the fuselage, because it's not a take-apart plane anymore. So I'm going to try to backmask it with tin foil, but before I do, I'm going to sand it with maybe with 600 or 1500 or something, so that where the tape line is, I can blend it in at some point in time. Anyway, it's so nice out there today. I really did want to get some of this painting done. Before I start working on a fuselage, I want to spray these two parts and see how this is going to start to pan out. But it certainly looks like we're going to have him back in a week or so. We'll be back at the flying field. Again, this is a quick and dirty way of getting a repair like this done. But in our case, we have to really be careful that we don't add any extra paint that we don't have to. And getting rid of all that automotive paint, wow. And the last thing before we set up to spray this is clean off all the residue with M600. Anytime you sand with soapy water, it's a good idea to use the M600 or Prepsol or something. Here's the reason: it gets off all the loose grit from sanding, anything that you didn't really wipe down. Alright, we're ready to put some paint on these two parts and put them outside to dry. And then we'll see what we still need to do some fine sanding on a fuselage, the main part, and then we need to figure out how we're gonna actually backmask it. Now, if we had silver on this, we obviously would be using less red, but I think in the aggregate, because most of this part is already red, we're going to get away with this. Yeah, we're going to find out. We're going to find out very soon, too. I'd like to take advantage of this day to get some paint on the fuselage just so I could be out here drying. So what I try to do is just get one coat on any of the spots that are really thin where we've already started to sand through. Let that dry up a second or two. In this sun, it won't take long. And the real challenge here is going to be what's going to be the most practical way to mask off the wing and tail, because again, not removable. That makes it a little more challenging. And only going over the spots at first that I've sanded through on. Let that kick up, just as a way to save a little bit of extra paint, a little bit of extra weight. And we'll do is let this dry 4 or 5 minutes out in the sun here, keep rotisserizing it, then put on a wet coat, and we'll be all set. Now after a wet coat, that should be ready for the next sand out, and we'll see. Give that a day or so to dry. And again, the trick, never get these parts in the sun. While the paint is soft, the sun will just bubble everything all up. Now, I was really thinking that while I could take advantage of the fact that we have this really nice weather right now out there for painting, well, but I still need to spend maybe a couple hours sanding this area with 1500, the area around the tail, because I want the tin foil to go right up there and create a line, maybe at an incline, and I haven't exactly figured out how I want to do that. But I didn't realize we're coming up right on the end of this tape. And I'm sure in the past couple of weeks, one of the things that's really happened is Rich has gotten excited about improving his pattern. He's got his first expert trophy. I feel he's hungry. He's really starting to step to the plate. And I think if we can convince him in the next week or so to get a trim tab on a plane and open up the handle on the upside, Brett Buck's in big trouble. Or Orestes or whoever. I don't even, who's the national champion? Orestes. Anyway. Having said that, it's time to end this video and hope that you never have to go through these refinishing things. They're boring, but you know what? It's nice to know that if you ever have to, you can bring these planes back from the dead. Twice. See you on the next tape.